Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. It's been a week since RCMP began enforcing a court injunction allowing Coastal GasLink to resume building a pipeline through Wet'suwet'en territory. Since then, 28 camp members and their supporters have been arrested. All have been released. APTN News was escorted in to see the now cleared Inuktitut camp. Here's Lee Wilson with a first-hand look at the area.
It is all quiet on the Morris West Forest Service Road outside of Houston as APTN News was escorted by RCMP past the police checkpoint. Our first time in the area since the exclusion zone was established. No drumming, singing, or supporters to be found, even at the RCMP checkpoint. 39-kilometer camp and Gidam Den access point at 44-kilometer both sit empty. Only a few remain at the Inuktitut Healing Village at 66-kilometer. Gidam Den spokesperson Molly Wickham shared her views on the events from Smithers.
Premier Horgan and Justin Trudeau and TC Energy and their investors that they've made a grave mistake in pushing this enforcement of the injunction and violating Indigenous people the way that they have.
Heavy machinery could be seen from Inuktitut clearing the roadways of signs and the remains of a blockade. RCMP officers monitored the injunction zone near the bridge at Inuktitut. Coastal GasLink announced they would restart construction on the 670-kilometer natural gas pipeline that runs from Dawson Creek in northeastern BC to Kitimat. They released the following statement. We are extremely disappointed enforcement was required to reopen Morris River Forest Service Road, but we will redouble efforts to engage with hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en and the Inuktitut in search of a peaceful, long-term resolution that benefits Wet'suwet'en people. After Wickham's call to action last week, national solidarity protests have been taking place across the country, including New Hazelton, an hour-and-a-half drive away from the exclusion zone, where supporters are 5 days in, blocking the railway. The blockade has the backing of the neighboring Gitxsan hereditary chiefs, who stand in support of the Wet'suwet'en. Wickham shared her thoughts moving forward.
People are looking at us asking what's next, what's going to happen. They think that, we've been under attack for 6-7 days now. We've been occupying our territories for 40 days now, and this is not the end. This is just the beginning.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Northern British Columbia.
In their third day of occupying the Federal Justice Building in Ottawa, Wet'suwet'en supporters' 24-hour ultimatum to Minister David Lametti ran out. Jamie Pashgumskum now from Ottawa.
With their demand that the government meet with Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs unmet, their message was simple.
Indigenous peoples and allies across Canada have announced reconciliation is dead. And reconciliation is dead.
The Prime Minister, who has been mostly silent while the country has erupted in protests, finally spoke out. His message? Respect Canadian law.
It's extremely important to respect the right to freely demonstrate peacefully, but we need to make sure that the laws are respected, and that's why I'm going to be engaging with our ministers and looking at what possible next steps there are.
Trudeau echoed David Lametti's comments that Wet'suwet'en resistance to the Coastal GasLink pipeline is a provincial matter, but demonstrators say the forced removal of Indigenous people from their unceded lands is a federal concern. Gabriel Fayant said it's a violation of Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Elected officials are willingly and knowingly violating Canadian law. And this should be a concern for all Canadians, that your elected officials are violating your laws. This is not just an Indigenous issue, this is a Canadian issue.
The youth then left and shut down an intersection near Parliament Hill for about 20 minutes. APTN reached out to David Lametti's office, but received no response by deadline on his claim in December that Canadian and Indigenous laws can coexist. Fayant agrees.
I agree. I think that if they make meaningful dialogue and conversation and actions with Wet'suwet'en and all Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island, there can be meaningful relationships. Yeah, but so far, over the last 250 years, that has not happened.
The demonstrators disbanded at about 12:30, but then reconvened a short time ago at the Supreme Court of Canada. Now they're marching down Wellington Street to the Rideau Centre, where they say they're going to hang their banner. But they say their actions won't stop here. Jamie Pashagumskum, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Still in Ontario, all trains from Toronto to Ottawa remain cancelled. Here's Annette Francis with an update.
It's been 7 days since the Wet'suwet'en supporters near Belleville, Ontario, have been camping out here beside the tracks in Tyendinaga. Late yesterday, the Mohawks were told by the Ontario Provincial Police that this is a dire situation and the injunction would be enforced. But they're still here today and continue to say they're not moving. And according to this Mohawk lawyer, they're doing nothing wrong.
I've read the court injunction and the order and the prohibitions laid out in it. And now that I've been here, it's been my observation that there's nothing going on here that violates that injunction.
Many here see these types of actions as necessary.
If we don't act, we're complicit in allowing these big corporations to destroy Mother Earth.
The protesters have set up another camp beside the tracks, just 3 kilometers east of here. To date, over 223 trains have been cancelled and over 34,000 passengers have been impacted. Transport Minister Mark Garneau issued a statement this afternoon, stressing the police are independent of all levels of government and calling on all parties to engage in open dialogue and ensure the situation is resolved peacefully. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Tyendinaga, Mohawk Territory.
To Vancouver, where hundreds of people gathered at a busy downtown intersection. APTN's Tina House has that part of the story.
People supporting Wet'suwet'en members who are opposed to a pipeline on their traditional territory are showing solidarity, including here at this normally busy intersection in Vancouver.
Tents and other supplies have been arriving here all day at the corner of Broadway and Cambie in downtown Vancouver. Literally, there are hundreds of people gathered here. It's about 9 o'clock at night. And on these tables here set up under the main tent, we've got food, water, blankets, umbrellas, and we've even got the red dresses hanging up representing the murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls issue.
We're just here pro-Earth, and we all share this Earth together, and we all have to do our part.
It started at 1 p.m. with just 4 people with drums, and then word spread on social media, and more people showed up at this peaceful demonstration. Signs showing support for the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs were on display on the street. And people signed banners to show their support, like Mara Margareta Cabana Boucher.
The colonial violence that is being perpetuated and has always been perpetuated on Indigenous people is unacceptable. I think that the hereditary chiefs have spoken and they do not want the pipeline going through their land. They have every right to protect our land and to protect themselves.
Some use their bodies to make a statement as police block traffic from coming through from all 4 directions. And for others, like Carleen Harvey, she's been attending most of the demonstrations that started last Thursday.
It was really important because we need to show solidarity with the people up north and the pipeline that's trying to go through. I think it's so integral for Indigenous people to really consider the long-standing impacts and relational impacts to not only Indigenous people but our kinship with the land and the kinship with animals and with nature.
The demonstration lasted throughout the night with no arrests. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
And we want to hear what you think about the Wet'suwet'en solidarity actions across the country. You can share your thoughts by sending an email to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Leave us your thoughts. Uvangalu means Me Too in Inuktitut. The Me Too movement sought out abusive men in the film industry. Now the Inuit version is trying to do the same thing. Ken Driscoll reports.
Every community has a whisper network, and Nunavut is no different. Alicia Arnakuk-Baril is an award-winning Nunavut filmmaker, and she hears all the whispers.
Years that we talk, especially as women, we talk about who's safe to be around, who's not. You know, there's whisper networks.
Johnny Isaluk is one of the best-known actors in Nunavut. When he received the Order of Canada and was nominated for an Inspire Award, those whispers got too loud for Arnakuk-Baril to ignore. She recalled a party where Isaluk crossed the line.
He touched my bum, and not just like a brush that could have been an accidental bump. He fondled me. It was 100% a sexual touch, and I was shocked. I had no idea it was coming. It just came out of nowhere, completely uninvited, no flirtation at all. Not that that matters.
She says in the years that followed, she heard more and more reports of similar actions by Isaluk, and worse. According to court records, Isaluk pled guilty to uttering threats against a woman in March 2014. He received 15 months probation. Isaluk got his start in an Arnakuk-Baril short film. She felt responsible.
And over time, the stories I heard just gradually got worse and worse. And I started to feel responsible in some way because I had cast him in my short film that was seen far and wide, and you know, very probably helped him get more work in the film industry. His public profile grew and grew, and
she wrote up her experience and what she had been told and posted it online. The response was swift. A hashtag, Uvangalu, which means Me Too in Inuktitut, sprung up. Within hours of her statement, ITK President Nathan Obed got on stage in Ottawa at the Arctic Inspiration Prize. He said he believed her and supported her. Two of Isaluk's sponsors accepted his resignation in the days that followed. Inspire suspended their award. APTN National News has been unsuccessful in reaching Isaluk to ask him what happened. He did issue a brief, non-specific apology. For Arnakuk-Baril, she hopes this is just a start.
I hope it's the new normal. I think saying these things out loud lets other predators know that you're not an easy target, and that they can't count on getting a pass from now on. I love knowing that there are predators all over shaking in their boots right now across the territory. Are they going to be next?
Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Inuktitut.
Coming up, a deeper look into the soaring costs of the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. Stick around. Here's a look at Thursday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. 0 with snow for Charlottetown and St. John's. Minus 14 with snow for Nain. 26 below in Inuktitut. Minus 1 with the rain-snow mix for Montreal and Quebec City. Plus 1 with snow for Toronto, London, Sarnia, and Windsor. Minus 19 under sunny skies for Thunder Bay and Wawa. 30 below in Churchill, 20 below for Thompson and God's Lake. Sunny and 18 below for Gimli and Brandon. Minus 19 in Winnipeg. Minus 10 in Saskatoon. 14 below for Regina. Minus 10 with snow in Buffalo Narrows. Minus 14 in La Ronge. Welcome back. The price tag to build the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion continues to rise, and Canadian taxpayers are now paying an additional 70% above the original projected cost to build the project. APTN's Tina House has that story.
West Coast environmental law lawyer Eugene Kung says he's not at all surprised by the soaring costs to build the Trans Mountain expansion project.
I think it really begs the question about whether the federal government should pump the brakes on this before moving ahead and throwing more good money after this bad project.
The price Canadian taxpayers paid was $4.5 billion to buy the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion project. Then, the company stated that the cost to build the project was going to be $7.4 billion. And just last week, that price tag is now $12.6 billion, and it's expected to be completed in 2022. Federal Finance Minister Bill Morneau is still confident and says once it's built, they plan on selling it back to the private sector, and says that Indigenous people will benefit in the end.
With respect to Indigenous peoples, we want to make sure that there's a meaningful consultation, which we've been doing all the way through. We want to see if there's a way to ensure economic opportunity for all the peoples impacted along the route. And then we want to more broadly think about whether this is part of our overall reconciliation agenda.
Charlene Alec lives along the Burrard Inlet, directly across from the Westridge dock. She says her Tsleil-Waututh Nation has never agreed to the project. She's astounded that the finance minister would say this pipeline is part of reconciliation.
If that money, what was proposed to spend on that project, was placed into communities for helping nations get a leg up in their economic development within their territories, would be a spark of reconciliation in my eyes, to help other nations with housing, portable drinking water, economic developments, education.
Tina House, APTN National News, North Vancouver.
The discussion on today's live edition of In Focus was band membership. Over the last 2 days, Tamara Pimentel shared stories of two families who are having difficulty getting their children registered with their bands. She joined host Rick Harp today to discuss what she's learned about the families and the impacts of being denied registration.
Emotional story for Ava and Danielle to tell. They talk about how much Lilith loves his community and how close he is with, his teachers. He stays back to help clean up the school after school is over, and he's really involved with the hockey community. And they're really worried about him growing up and realizing he's not actually being accepted into this community that he loves so much. And I think that can do a lot of damage to somebody growing up, realizing that they're not really a part of their own community.
Well, I think in this case we have parents who are members, right? So, they're petitioning for their children to become members. And I don't know why there needs to be this song and dance about that, right? We recognize the rights of those parents, right, as members. And instead of, welcoming them, celebrating them, we're attacking them and saying no and, playing games. And, where is the love, right, as Indigenous people to our members? Right? Do we love our members? Do we care about our members, how they feel? That one parent was obviously, emotionally affected, right? That's the impact, right? And we just went through the national inquiry about trauma and lateral violence. Didn't we not learn anything? And why do we continue to perpetuate that on gay and lesbian parents now?
And you can watch the entire episode of today's In Focus on our Facebook page and our website, aptnnews.ca. You can also catch an encore presentation tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Well, still to come, we'll take you to a hockey tournament in Northern Ontario with 80 teams hitting the ice. Here's the rest of Thursday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. +2 with snow in Grand Prairie, +1 and snow for Peace River. 0 under sunny skies for Medicine Hat, +6 in Lethbridge. 7 above with showers in Vancouver, Campbell River and Tofino. +2 and snow for Smithers, -9 for Fort Nelson. -32 in Old Crow, -3 with snow for Whitehorse. -20 in Yellowknife, 26 below for Norman Wells. 29 below in Sax Harbor, -34 for Inuvik. -32 in Repulse Bay, 33 below in Chesterfield. -26 in Resolute, 30 below in Joe Haven. Welcome back. A youth hockey tournament in Northern Ontario brings together hundreds of young people from Anishinaabe Nation. And as Willa Fiddler reports, it's grown into an event that both kids and adults look forward to year after year.
When the Little Bands hockey tournament started 19 years ago, there were only 4 teams participating. Today there's 80 teams competing in 7 divisions from novice to midget. Ziggy Beardy is one of the Little Bands tournament organizers. He says the tournament began as an event for the young people in remote and rural First Nations north of Sulakaut.
We saw that there was a lack of recreational programming and lack of things for young people to do on the reserves, and so we decided to start a hockey tournament in an urban setting.
Beardy says it takes careful planning for the teams to attend.
The communities put a lot of effort into it. It costs a lot of money to bring kids out here, and so there's volunteers in the communities. There's trainers, instructors, there's special hockey camps that take place up in the communities.
Darrell Gray is one of the coaches of this Choose Life team from Mishkigogumang First Nation. Choose Life is a suicide prevention program in Anishinaabe Nation.
They bought jerseys and provided equipment for us too. The kids that don't have it, they bought equipment, gave it to us. The kids that need them.
He says the tournament is a good experience for the kids.
They're happy. They look forward to this every year. That's how my sons are. I have 3 sons playing. They look forward to Little Bands every year.
Christian Senawap is from Kitchener-Kusub, Inanawag, and has been coming to Little Bands for a few years now.
It's pretty difficult, actually. Some of the other teams are actually really good.
Beardy says it's not just the youth who are having a good time.
People come in, watch really good, exciting, competitive hockey, especially with the midget games and bantam games, and people, come to look at the small kids as well too, and the novice, the small kids teams, they bring out the crowds too.
7-year-old Jacob Meekus is a novice player from Sandy Lake.
I like scoring and I got my first medal.
He also likes watching his older nephew play.
So he's very good at hockey. He gets lots of goals. And I really love him lots.
Emily Kakapitam is also from Sandy Lake and no stranger to the ice.
I started skating when I was 2. I have these. Actually 3, yeah. I have 2 of these ones and 1 of these ones.
But it's not the medals that bring the teams back every year.
I think it's, the chance to compete, the chance to meet new friends and just to mingle with, their own people. And, just the excitement of, coming to a central place, to compete.
And while the tournament comes to a close, it doesn't mean it's over.
Once we go home, they're going to already talk about next year.
Willow Fiddler, APTN National News, Dryden, Ontario.
What an event, and plenty of future professional hockey players there, I'm sure. That's your APTN National News for this Wednesday. Stay up to date with the latest by downloading the APTN News app. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here tomorrow.